Today I'm going to show you how to make caldo de albondigas, which is a Mexican meatball soup with vegetables. This is going to be good. So first, I'm going to start by making my meatballs. Here in a bowl, I'm going to be using 1 pound of lean ground beef. To that, I'm going to add around a half teaspoon of granulated onion powder, a half teaspoon of granulated garlic powder. Here I'm going to add some cracked black pepper, like a half teaspoon. I'm also going to be adding a teaspoon of salt. And here I have a half cup of rinsed, uncooked rice. I rinsed this in cold water, and now I'm putting it into the ground beef mixture with my clean hands or a gloved hand. I'm going to give that a mix. So recently I was at a nursery shopping for plants, and I ran into longtime subscribers of Simply Mama Cooks, and they requested albondigas. So here we go. I'm also going to add 1 large egg into the mix, and I've seen recipes where some people add breadcrumbs. I sometimes add fresh cilantro. I'm leaving it out of the meatballs today, but you can definitely add that, and be sure to season how you prefer. Sometimes I use fresh garlic instead of the powdered garlic, but I went with something easy today. Okay, so I have a baking sheet. I'm going to add some parchment paper onto the baking sheet, and I'm going to start portioning out the meatballs. I like to use a scooper, and I'm going to get somewhere between 14 to 16 meatballs. It depends on the size. I'm just going to roll them in my hand into a meatball shape and place them onto my baking sheet. And then I'm just going to repeat the process for all of the meatballs. If you are new here, welcome to my channel, Simply Mama Cooks. And if you are already subscribed, maybe you might want to check the notification bell to make sure you get all of my latest videos. Okay, meatballs are done. So I'm going to start building this soup. In a preheated pan, I've added a little bit of cooking oil, and I'm going in with 1 large carrot that I cut into chunks and a small piece of celery that I also cut into chunks. You can make your cuts smaller into a dice. Here I have a little bit of onion, and I'm going to add some salt, and I'm going to saute well. I'm also going to toss in 1 dried bay leaf into the pot, and I'm going to saute this for around 10 minutes because the carrots take a long time to get tender, so I'm giving them a head start. And here's that bay leaf. So just continue the process and do this for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes of saute, I'm going to add 1.5 pounds of gold potatoes. You can use russet potatoes. Honestly, I didn't really weigh the potatoes, but something like 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. I also added some salt, and I'm going to continue the saute for about 5 to 7 minutes. I also want to mention that I'm working with like a medium heat setting on the largest burner. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is create this base for the broth. I have 1 Roma tomato. I'm also working with 2 cloves of garlic, and that's going to go into my blender cup. I'm also going to be adding 1 soaked guajillo pepper. This was a dried guajillo pepper. I added 2, but I'm only going to use 1 today. And I removed the stems, seeds, and soaked it until it was soft. And I had it soaking in really hot water, by the way, and it's just been sitting on my counter. So I'm going to add that into the blender cup. Some people like to add chipotle peppers. You can definitely do that if you want spice, but I don't know. I like the flavor of the guajillo chile in this broth. So now I'm going to measure out 1 cup of that soaking liquid and add that into the blender cup. That's going to actually help everything puree when I go to, blend it up. Here I have a 1/4 teaspoon of dried Mexican oregano going in, and I also have a half teaspoon of whole cumin seeds with about 5 peppercorns that I've kind of grinded up, and I'm going to add that into the blender cup. Some people don't like the taste of cumin, so you can leave that out, but I like it. Here I have 2 tablespoons of beef bouillon powder. You could skip the bouillon powder and just opt for beef broth from the store or homemade. That also works. So now I'm just going to cover with the lid and puree well. I'm going to add it right into my pot of sautéed vegetables and aromatics. And I sort of want that to kind of cook and simmer for a couple of minutes. Now I'm going to add 6 cups of water. In total for this recipe, I'm using 7 cups of water, and that's including that soaking liquid that we used in the blender cup. I'm going to give it a good mix. I'm going to cover with a lid, and I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And once I see it boiling, I am going to lower the heat, and I'm going to let this cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. For the next ingredient, I will be using squash or zucchini. Depends on what you can find. I'm going to remove the lid, and it has been boiling and cooking for 10 minutes. It still has more cook time, but I'm doing this at different intervals or time during the cooking process because not everything's going to be able to keep its texture if I just add it all into the pot. The carrots take the longest to cook and get tender. So you'll want to taste it for salt and adjust your seasoning to your preference, whether it's salt or bouillon powder or other ingredients. Give that a mix. And now I'm going to go in with my Mexican squash or calabaza. Some people call it calabacita. I also sometimes like to add chayote and fresh sweet corn into the pot, but this is what I'm working with today. I'm going to cover with a lid, and I'm going to let this continue cooking for another 5 to 7 minutes. And all of my meatballs are done, and I'm also going to be adding fresh cilantro. A lot of you taste soap when you use cilantro. Leave it out. You don't have to add it. And sometimes I chop this up and put it into the meatballs, but I'll just throw it into the soup. Before adding the meatballs, you want to make sure that your soup is boiling. So I'm going in and I'm going to add all of my meatballs one by one. I'm going to give this a good mix, and I'm going to bring this back up to a boil and let it continue cooking until the meatballs are cooked through. It's going to take like another 12 minutes or so. So I'm going to check to see if the carrot is tender, which it is. I'm using a chopstick. I'm also checking the potato. And once these are cooked through as well, it's ready to serve. So I'm going to shut off the heat, and dinner is served. Or you could make this for lunch and have it as leftovers. It's so good the next day as well. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it. And thanks for watching.